One of the most hyped Nitros of the year saw WCW putting on a pay-per-view caliber card in the return to its home base at the Phillips Arena in Atlanta, headlined outside of Bill Goldberg's first match back in 6 months, placed at 9 p.m., which managed to hold draw to its lowest rated quarter of the year, by Ric Flair vs. Vince Russo in a cage match in Russo's first ever televised match after building it up since debuting as an on-screen character in April, going 10 minutes to bump Nitro over 900,000 viewers to cross into the final quarter with a big spectacle of Russo and Flair climbing to the top of the cage, followed by David Flair's interference to build to the blow-off match for next Monday. Bill Goldberg turning heel for the first time in his career to join Russo and Bischoff in the New Blood was the major surprise coming out of the Great American Bash pay-per-view, hoping for a major interest boost on the night with Russo and David Flair opening the crossover segment minutes before Raw went on the air to set up a career hair match against Ric for later tonight, seeing it turning into a tag match with David and Reed Flair on each side placed towards the end of the final quarter into the overrun, drawing a quarter-high 3 rating while in a coincidence going head-to-head with a McMahon's vs. Studley's Tables match on Raw, seeing both matches picking up strong with the Russo-Flair match jumping over 700,000 viewers while the McMahon match picked up to Raw's highest-rated opposed quarter in over a month 6.7 rating, ending up in a major heat angle with Russo and David shaving Flair's hair to write him off television for shoulder surgery, with the post-match hair segment taking place past 10 p.m. bumping Nitro further to peak at a 3.2 rating with over 3.7 million viewers. With Vince Russo bringing back David Flair to turn on Ric last night at the Slamboree pay-per-view, Flair came out with the 2 NWA and WCW title belts midway through the first hour, talking about his history in St. Louis before calling out David to the ring, coming out with Russo saying that he spit in the face of tradition and David is now standing next to the father he never had, building up the heat for the eventual Flair vs. Russo match, with Ric telling David that people like Russo would try to manipulate and brainwash him in the business, followed by one of the most talked about moments of the week with Ric saying to David that unlike Russo, who burned the bridge with the way he left the company, he can call Vince McMahon tonight and get him signed with the WWF to be on Raw by next Monday night, seeing the segment leading to Nitro's biggest viewership jump of the night with over 600,000 viewers to a 3.2 rating. 7 days after winning the WCW title, followed by him addressing the status of the belts on Thunder 2 days later, Russo opened Nitro with a statement to give away the title and write himself off television after taking another blow to the head from Goldberg's spear on the barricade to add to his concussion issues, addressing the events of the past week, saying that he proved he can win the WCW title and is now relinquishing it with a match between Steiner and Jarrett for the belt set for the main event, turning to Goldberg to bring him out to the ring, with Russo driving out in a protected glass, saying that Goldberg's fate is in his hands, with him starting tonight must repeat his 176-win undefeated streak or he's fired the first time he loses a match, with the Russo-Goldberg confrontation in Russo's final segment on Nitro, followed by him putting Mike Sanders in charge to replace him as the on-screen authority figure, drawing the peak viewership of the night with a 3.3 rating and over 4.1 million viewers. Built as the biggest night in Russo's career, with him challenging for the WCW title in his hometown of Long Island, New York, on simultaneously one of the biggest Mondays of the year for both companies, with Raw debuting on TNN and Nitro looking to potentially capitalize on the network change to close the gap. September 25th, in perhaps the most unpredictable night in the Monday Night Wars in 18 months, saw Russo, after a week of hype with him building up the show as one of the biggest in Nitro history, coming out to the Nassau Coliseum to hype him walking out of the building with the title before being interrupted by Sting and Goldberg to signal to viewers that both are getting involved in the Russo-Booker match later tonight, with this segment seeing Nitro picking up strong in the second quarter to hit over 4.2 million viewers half an hour before Raw went on the air, with the Booker vs. Russo cage match placed in the final quarter head-to-head against the majority of a big tag titles ladder match on Raw, going 9 minutes with all the top names in the company involved, including the surprise returns of Flair and Luger, gaining over 700,000 viewers to bump the show from a 2.1 to 2.7 rating, while in the process dropping Raw from a 5.3 to a 4.9, averaging over 3.4 million viewers for the duration of it, to end with a cliffhanger finish of Goldberg spearing Russo through the cage in a spot that resulted in the end of Russo's on-screen run to build intrigue for the follow-up with the identity of the champion unknown. On a rare full unopposed night, with Nitro starting an hour earlier from 7 to 9 p.m. to end just as Raw is set to go on the air, WCW built Nitro on a legit situation taking place at the Thunder taping, with Ric Flair legitimately collapsing last Tuesday, seeing Russo playing off that while in a program with Flair to hype a funeral segment for his career throughout the 7 p.m. hour, with Nitro, which started way lower than usual due to the abrupt timeslot change, getting a massive viewership bump at the start of its original start time at 8 p.m. with a gain of over 1.3 million viewers for the hyped Russo funeral to Flair in what under normal circumstances would be the highest rated opening quarter in a month, building up to the main event title match, with the broadcast picking up viewers in every quarter throughout the night to peak for Nash vs. Jarrett, going 5 minutes for the vacated WCW title with Russo as special referee, ending up with Russo costing Nash the belt to hand it back to Jarrett, with the main event quarter drawing a 3.6 rating with over 4.2 million viewers. With Nitro seeing its strongest string of numbers in close to a year over the past 3 weeks, all focus shifted to September 25th on a potentially game-changing night, with Raw moving networks for the first time in its history, seeing Nitro setting up the main event for the show on September 18th, with Russo, after standing over Goldberg last night at the Fall Brawl pay-per-view, coming out in a Goldberg entrance to open the second quarter, reading a letter on running Goldberg out of the company before the announcement for next Monday, saying that the only thing left for him to do is win the world title, with him challenging Booker for next week in a lifelong dream to become champion at the Nassau Coliseum in his hometown of Long Island, New York, seeing the segment with Steiner, Nash and Jarrett gaining over 900,000 viewers to a 3.4 rating. Continuing in a show-long angle of Russo trying to find a partner for the main event tag match to end the night, with him pinning Steiner after Booker's interference in a tag match, gaining another 800,000 viewers to officially set up the Booker vs. Russo title match for next Monday. With Raw preempted to 11 p.m. for 2 weeks and Nitro instead of going against one of the biggest draw audiences of the year a day after the SummerSlam pay-per-view, having a massive opportunity to let viewers sample its product, with Russo saying on the company website that loaded shows are planned for the next 2 weeks, with Nitro after shooting the angle the previous Monday seeing the reuniting of Russo's 2000 regime NWO arriving to the building to set up 2 major segments for later tonight. First with Nash vs. Booker for the WCW title, opening the second hour with the match in the usual toughest time slot of the night on a regular week, instead gaining strong with over 1 million viewers to a 4.1 rating, followed by the payoff of the show-long angle with Goldberg chasing Russo to drive him to a desert for the closing angle, ending up with Bret Hart making a surprise appearance in the final minute of the broadcast to turn on Goldberg, with the Russo-Bret Goldberg Desert segment closing the show with a show-high 4.8 million viewer. With the heated Flair vs. Russo feud doing strong numbers to largely draw the highest-rated segments on both Nitro and Thunder since kicking off on April 10th. May 15th saw things taken to the next level, with the show again built around the feud to see them peaking both the unopposed and head-to-head hours, building up to one of the most memorable segments of the year throughout the first hour, with Russo and David shooting a skit at Flair's home on David's history with the family, seeing Russo instructing the production crew to play the footage just as Rick went to the ring to see the segment, leading to massive growth of over 1.5 million viewers throughout the hour to peak at a 4.1 rating, with 5 million viewers in the final quarter and Nitro's highest-rated segment in 4 months, setting up the main event an hour later with Rick getting a title shot against Jarrett in a match taking place entirely in the Overrun. Seeing Russo and David coming out for commentary already past 10 p.m. with the Flair vs. Jarrett match going 11 minutes in the Overrun, bumping the show 1 million viewers to a 3.3 rating, the highest-rated opposed segment in 3 months, with the broadcast overall also hitting a 4-month high 3.1 rating in the most-watched show of the Russo-Bischoff era to date. With the momentum of its most-watched broadcast since September '99, the previous weekend a massive main event hyped in hopes of topping it tonight, September 4, 2000 saw Nitro win its second straight unopposed week, going all out with the first ever Triple Cage War Games on television, heavily hyping the match during the week, involving every available top star in the company, built as Russo's revenge to target a huge audience boost on the night, seeing the match being hyped throughout the show, first with a Russo and Nash promo exchange inside the massive cage structure, with the broadcast picking up viewers in every quarter over the 2 hours, kicking off the match with the entrances at 9:40 p.m. with a 20-minute commercial-free block set to run to the end of the show, seeing the big star power match of Goldberg, Booker, Sting and Gronik against Steiner, Nash, Jarrett and Russo in one of the biggest spectacles in show history, setting several-year high rating and viewership milestones for the company, jumping huge with over 1.4 million viewers to a 4.8 rating, with 5.6 million viewers to make it the joint highest-rated quarter on the WCW broadcast since the final stages of its peak period in April 1999, ending up with Bret Hart returning to cost Goldberg the match, followed by the swerve of Russo and Nash working together to drive Nitro overall to its highest-rated and most-watched show in the year.